Okay, Vassos, may I have today's big intro for today's special guest on All Guest Tuesday? Thank you.
Our next guest is a dermatologist and skin researcher who was on the show during Skin Cancer Awareness Month, was brilliant. So at the start of another heatwave, we've asked her back. She's here to tell us why we really should be banning tanning. Please welcome, definitely, maybe, Beibei Du-Harper.
Let's hear it for Dr. Beibei. How are you?
I'm very good.
Thanks for being back. What a perfect day for you to be here at the start of another heatwave.
I know, yeah.
Wow. Now, in between us talking last time on the air, not off the air, but on the air, we have talked off the air, there's been a skin conference.
Yes, that's right.
Tell us about what happens at a skin conference. Where did it take place? Who came? What was discussed?
So the conference this year was in Glasgow, which was a welcome reprieve from the heat wave, to be honest. It was a lot cooler up north. And, you know, the skin conference is a gathering of all the dermatologists across the country. There was actually a very lively debate on skin cancer and skin cancer screening.
Well, why was it lively particularly?
So there are differing perspectives on how far we should go with skin cancer screening amongst dermatologists. And, you know, it's a nuanced discussion about sunscreen and sun protection. Obviously, dermatologists on the whole are very pro sunscreen and sun protection. But there is some research to show that being outdoors is also good for your health.
Yeah.
So I know you like running, for example.
Yeah.
And being outside often involves being active. So it's just finding the nuance between all of those things so that we're making health recommendations.
Which was the most helpful bit, most constructive bit of that conversation, do you think?
Well, there was also a guy from Australia who came over and, you know, spoke a bit about banning sunbeds. And actually, you know, in terms of health interventions, I think that was one of the most useful things that we talked about. Because
it's funny, isn't it? Because, you might get to that point as a species where that might be the most sensible thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've done that in Australia.
Have they actually?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And here, I think they're introducing, there's legislation about you know, people who are younger not being able to access sunbeds, but it's hard to know how
sunbeds, period.
Yeah.
Wow. And I suppose it depends where you are in the world, doesn't it? So, I mean, the fact they call sunbeds, the clue's in the question, I suppose.
Yes.
And are Australia like the go-to?
Well, so Australia has really, really high UV exposure compared to the UK. So if you look at something called the UV index, so if you go on your phone and go into the weather app, you can look up something called the UV index, and that is a measure of how intense the sun is for your given location.
Got it.
And in Australia, the UV index is across the year so much higher than in the UK. And obviously people in Australia, a lot of people in Australia have very light skin tone because they came from places like the UK. So the skin tone of someone who is ethnically from the UK shouldn't be exposed to the UV index that they have in Australia, and also they have the issue with the ozone layer and so on. So that means that they've had really, really high rates of skin cancer over the years. So they've been really, really proactive at all of their public health measures. So there's loads of education within schools. Parents are very well educated on how to protect their children because childhood exposure is so key. And they've done things like ban sunbeds as well.
Wow, I didn't know that. So same world, different world.
Yes,
in a way.
absolutely.
Same planet, different world.
Yes.
And the ozone layer above Australia, forgive my ignorance here, but I'm never too embarrassed to ask the most stupid question in the room. So the ozone layer is thinnest over Australia. Is that because of where Australia is, or because of where all the gases have gone that we're burning, or how? Because it's suffering from a double whammy in a way, Australia.
Yes. I can't tell you why it's particularly bad over Australia, to be
fair
honest.
enough. You tell us about the fact they've banned sunbeds. And it's, I suppose, in a way, that's obviously to protect people, but also, you know, whatever's most prevalent when it comes to your national healthcare system, it's costing so much money.
Absolutely.
Because I have a very close family who live in Australia and New Zealand, and they have regular skin cancer checkups every 6 months, and they're always getting things cut out. Like, you know, it's a big deal for us, quite rightly, but it's more normalised there.
Yeah. I think, you know, obviously it's a different situation in Australia because the skin cancer rates are so high and their exposure is so high. And once you've had one skin cancer, it's kind of an indication that your skin's reached a bit of a critical point where it's had enough UV and it will start kind of popping out more. So that's why they often end up on these surveillance programs.
Wow. And so the Australian speakers, was it a suggestion that we ban sunbeds here? Or look, we've done that because it's not as hot here, but that doesn't matter really in a way because long term it's just as bad. It could be as bad here.
Well, people also travel a lot as well.
Yeah, of course. You said this before, didn't you?
Yeah, people travel abroad, and also sunbeds are, uniquely damaging because they have a lot of UVA waves. So, I mean, that's why they induce such a tan. So the sunlight is a spectrum of radiation. So you talked about heat. Yeah. So heat is one aspect of that spectrum. You also have UVA and UVB. And also all the colours of the spectrum as well. So UVA is your aging rays, and they also induce tanning. UVB is your burning rays. So if you want someone to keep coming back, you don't want them to get burnt when they lie in a sunbed. You want them to not get burnt but get tanned. So that's why they're full of UVA rays. But this is actually very insidious because it's causing a lot of damage without you realising.
Wow. It's so fascinating. And you and I talked, didn't we, off the air a couple of weeks ago about the whole tanning thing.
Yeah.
And in some countries, they just don't understand.
Yeah.
Just speak to that a bit more, if you don't mind.
So I'm Chinese by background, and it is stark, the cultural differences between how people perceive skin colour in China versus here. So in China and many other Asian countries, it's desirable to be lighter skin toned, and people are absolutely obsessed with protecting their skin from the sun and minimizing exposure. They even have something called a face kini, where essentially they cover their entire face with a piece of UV protective fabric.
I'm a face kini guy.
Are you?
No, I'm not, but I'm buying
you
up
would
for
be,
it.
You would be.
Yeah.
Whereas here, people are really wanting to be tanned because there is this concept in the ether of having a healthy tan. And if you look back in the history, back in 1923, Coco Chanel stepped off a boat from her holiday in the French Riviera, and she was tanned, maybe even slightly burnt. And this triggered this concept that perhaps being tanned was actually desirable and fashionable and attractive. Before this, being tanned was associated with being an outdoor labourer, so that was not desirable at all.
So this was the tipping point, not the pivot point.
I think this was one factor, so that was a massive social factor. But in the same decade, vitamin D was identified as something that was somehow synthesized from the sun and was also a treatment for rickets. So that was all kind of emerging at the same time, that research. So actually doctors were really pushing UV lamps and sun exposure as a health benefit without realizing that it actually had detrimental effects on the skin. So back in the early 20th century, the UK was a hotbed of rickets.
Forgive the pun.
But unfortunately, the whole UV thing was taken a bit too far, and it swung in the other direction.
Right.
And now there's a lot of skin cancer, and the mild forms of skin cancer, so basal cell and squamous cell carcinoma, which I spoke about on the show before, those are the most common cancers in the UK. They often aren't included in the sort of top cancers list because they aren't ones that tend to kill you, but they are extremely common, extremely common. And people who have them need to constantly go to the doctor to get them cut out.
Yeah.
And the issue with that is also the cost to the NHS, because you can imagine clinician time is the most high cost within the NHS.
Because it's person to person.
Absolutely. So it's not just the doctor or the nurse who might be cutting the skin cancer out. It might be the follow-up visits to review the wound, remove sutures, all of those things.
You can't do it online, basically.
No. It's an in-person physical thing. And at the moment, the treatments are largely surgical. There aren't really any tablets or other treatments that you can take.
What if you had a crystal ball, or what might be on the horizon as far as alternative treatments are concerned? Because is there anything in incubation going on there?
So there are treatments for more advanced skin cancers that are being developed, sort of immunotherapies and chemotherapies, but that would be for more advanced cancers that might have spread.
Wow, it's no wonder you have a conference to talk about all this stuff. It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a cover-upper now, as opposed to a slapper-honorer.
Yeah.
Would you say, I would say this with Nike because that's what I like, but I find that it's more convenient. It's cooler because of the UV tops I wear. I feel cooler. They're thinner material.
Yes.
It's free. There's more freedom of movement. It's there's a lot of wins there, and it means I do have to cover my face in as much cream as I dare, much protection as I dare, because I'm not yet face keened, but I'm very tempted to face keeny. What would you say? is it better to cover up, with a physical barrier as opposed to slap on the cream, or what would you say?
Yes, I would say seek shade.
Yeah.
And use a physical barrier above using a sun cream. In terms of, your sun cream should be your last line of defense.
Okay.
And used for areas of your body that you can't cover up so easily, essentially. So things like the backs of your hands, your face, those are the best locations. I mean, the problem with sun cream is that historically people have used them to sunbathe. So if you look at the research, people who are wearing sun cream are doing it to tan. And that's how sun creams were also first initially developed. I'm sure in your youth you remember seeing SPF 4, SPF 6 sun creams. You can't even buy them anymore.
What about oil? What about the oil?
Exactly.
Oh my God, the oil was crazy. You're literally putting cooking fat onto your skin.
Yeah, with a token amount of SPF that would stop you from burning, but would still be able to, let you lay out in the sun. So people are using sun creams in the wrong way, essentially. Well, the first thing you should be doing is reducing the exposure. So being aware of where the sun is most intense, the time of day when it's most intense, and the locations that are most intense.
I mean, I've got a sunroof on my car, and if I'm driving the wrong way at the wrong time, I'll close the sunroof. Because I'm super sensitive now because of what's happened. But other headlines today that could help people today on the first day of another heatwave in the UK?
I would say the UV index is my number one hack.
Right.
So the UV index is on your weather app, and it will tell you when the UV is high. So when it's 3 and above, you should absolutely be covering up, wearing sun cream.
3 and above?
Yeah, 3 and
what
above.
What does it go to? What's the scale?
So like 11 or 12 is the absolute maximum, but you will not see that in the UK. It goes up to about a maximum of 7 and 8 in the UK.
Right, not yet.
No.
Maybe in years to come.
Well, probably unlikely, actually. So it's more to do with the position of the Earth.
Okay, got it.
So in the UK, we're simply too far north for that to be to have that degree of exposure.
Right,
But
so
in Australia, it's like UV 11 in the summer.
So it doesn't correlate to heat. It's about angle.
Exactly.
Height and angle.
Yes.
All right. You're about to start a podcast, which is very exciting.
I am.
When is this going to happen?
So we're filming our first episode on Thursday.
Right.
Yeah. So it's called Skin Conversations.
Brilliant.
And we're bringing together dermatologists and also researchers, the people who've really transformed the face of dermatology and translational dermatology in the UK, as well as people who've experienced skin diseases and having conversations about it.
And are you hosting or are you?
I am hosting.
Good for you. Well, count me in if you need any help or you need a gobby DJ to talk about getting skin cancer. Anything I can do to help.
Thank you. We'd be delighted to have you.
No, brilliant. What's it going to be called?
Skin Conversations.
Skin Conversations. All right. And when you're recording on Thursday, when does it come out?
It'll be coming out towards the end of the summer.
All right. Yeah. Excellent. Follow Beibei on Instagram at Dr. Beibei. Sorry, Dr. Beibei, Beibei .dermatology. Great, thanks. I know you're busy today. You're always busy, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Can we have a round of applause, please, for a very busy doctor? Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing. Cool. All cool. Brilliant.